My name is Frank Delaney. I'm 82 now, but what I'm about to tell you happened when I was 18. It's been over 60 years, but some nights, the memory of that encounter sneaks up on me like a familiar scent carried by the wind, unexpected, vivid, and far too real to be forgotten. It wasn't just any memory. It was the memory, the one that stays long after the rest have faded. It was the summer of 1959 in New York City, and I was working as a part-time usher and projectionist at a small, nearly forgotten cinema on the West Side. The kind of place that still smelled like mothballs and melted butter, with squeaky floors, uneven seats, and a silver screen that had more wrinkles than my grandmother. But that old theater had a soul. It was quiet, gentle, like it understood broken people and gave them permission to sit in the dark and feel something, anything. I was a quiet kid, not shy, just unnoticed. I didn't have many friends. I read too much. I listened more than I spoke, and I watched. I watched the world unfold from behind a window, always a step removed. The movie showing that evening was Some Like It Hot. I had watched it at least 10 times already, not because I loved it, though I did, but because it was part of the job. Reels jammed sometimes. The sound would skip. The picture might flicker. I had to stay alert. That night, only a handful of people showed up. Rain had started to fall, soft, warm rain that turned the streets glossy and the city lights into watercolor blurs. The late show was nearly empty. I counted exactly 7 guests as they shuffled in. Couples, loners, the usual. But then she walked in, or rather, she appeared. A woman, wrapped in a pale trench coat, head low under a wide-brimmed hat, sunglasses still on even though the lobby lights were dim. There was no announcement, no fanfare. She moved quietly, as if trying not to be seen. Yet somehow, all eyes turned toward her, including mine. She sat in the very last row, dead center, her posture straight, but not rigid. Something about her presence bent the air around her. Even from the projection booth above, I felt it. Gravity, not physical, but emotional, like she carried a storm beneath her coat. I didn't recognize her at first. Of course I didn't. I was 18, and in real life, stars didn't just walk into empty theaters. Especially not alone. Especially not her. The movie began. Familiar scenes danced across the screen. People laughed at the same jokes, reacted at the same beats. I sat in my booth and watched the room more than the film. She didn't laugh, didn't shift, didn't react. She just sat there staring ahead like someone watching their own reflection in a dream. When the film ended, the credits rolled. The other guests left quietly, their laughter still echoing faintly through the halls. But she didn't move. Not even when the house lights came on. Not even when I turned off the projector. I stood there, unsure of what to do. Something inside me said walk away, let her be. But curiosity, or something deeper, got the better of me. I took a deep breath, descended the creaky stairs from the booth, and made my way to the back row. I approached slowly, careful not to startle her. "Miss, is everything all right?" She turned her head slightly. The sunglasses were off now. Her eyes were red, but dry, tired, not from lack of sleep, but from carrying too much weight for too long. "Yes," she said. Her voice was soft, like silk on paper. "I just needed to stay a little longer." And then I saw it. Marilyn Monroe. Not the poster, not the magazine cover, not the glittering goddess of the screen, but a woman. Real, raw. unraveling. I said nothing. She didn't offer a smile or an autograph. She simply looked back at the screen, now blank. "You ever feel more like yourself in the dark?" she asked. I nodded before I could stop myself. "All the time," I said. She chuckled softly. "Thought so." She tapped the seat beside her. I sat. My heart raced, but not because I was starstruck. Something else was happening. Something human. She spoke in slow sentences, measured, thoughtful. She told me how she'd come to the theater 3 times that week, always late, always alone, that no one had noticed her, that she liked it that way. She told me her real name was Norma, and that sometimes she forgot that too. She told me about the silence in hotel rooms, the pressure to smile when everything hurt, the strangers who thought they owned her just because they'd seen her in a movie. And I listened. Not because she was famous, but because she was lonely. We sat there in silence for a few minutes more. Not the awkward kind of silence that demands filling, but the heavy, sacred kind that speaks for itself. I could hear the faint hum of the city outside, sirens in the distance, and the occasional rumble of the subway beneath our feet. But all of it felt far away. Like we were sitting in a snow globe, just the two of us, sealed off from time. She leaned back in her chair, exhaling deeply. "I had this dream once," she said. "I was on stage, but no one could see me. I was singing, pouring my whole soul out. But the audience was just shadows. They clapped, but it wasn't for me. It was for who they thought I was." I swallowed hard. "I think I do now," she smiled. A real one. Then she stood and nodded toward the exit. "Come walk with me." We stepped out into the street together. The rain had stopped, leaving puddles reflecting the amber glow of the streetlights. We walked without speaking for a few blocks. Occasionally, I glanced at her, wondering how the world would react if they saw her now. No diamonds, no stage, no camera flashes. She stopped near a small diner. I used to come here when I was just starting out. I'd sit here with a coffee and write in my notebook. We didn't go in, just stood there under the glow of the neon sign, both of us staring at something neither of us could see. "I never wanted fame," she said. "I wanted love, safety, a home, but those don't come in a box office report." We walked back to the theater. Under the flickering sign, she turned to me. "You know what I envy?" "What?" "Ordinary people. People who don't have to perform being human." She reached into her coat and handed me a folded envelope. "I hope one day someone sees the real me and doesn't walk away," it said. I looked at her. "I see you," I whispered. She touched my hand. "Thank you. For tonight." And then she walked into the dark. I never saw her again. Years later, when I read about her death, I went back to the theater. It was shut down. I slid her letter through the door, like a flower on a grave. I'm 82 now. And some nights when I sit in my old leather chair with a cup of tea, the world slows down just enough for memories to find their way back to me. I still have that letter. It's folded between the pages of a first edition Steinbeck novel, her favorite, she told me. I take it out once a year, usually in August, around the time she passed. I don't read it every time. Sometimes I just hold it. What surprises me most is how clear her voice still is in my mind. Time has faded so many things, names, places, even parts of my own story. But her voice, that gentle, weary whisper, it hasn't changed at all. My grandchildren know me as the quiet one, the storyteller. I suppose I became what she saw in me that night. Someone who listens, someone who sees. I never became famous, never sought it, but I did spend my life trying to make people feel seen. Maybe that's the legacy she gave me. Last year, my granddaughter asked about the letter in the book. She had seen me holding it, tears in my eyes, and she simply said, "Was it someone you loved?" And I paused. Because how do you answer that? What do you call a person who walked into your life for a single night and left footprints that never faded? I told her, it was someone who changed me. That seemed enough. She smiled and nodded, the way children do when they sense truth in something they can't yet understand. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd asked for her number or written to her or tried to see her again. But deep down, I know that night wasn't meant to last. Some moments are too perfect to repeat, too fragile to survive daylight. That night was a gift, not a romance, not a dream. A moment between two people who were both a little lost, both searching for meaning in a world that moves too fast and sees too little. So if you're listening now, if somehow this story reaches you, remember this: being seen, truly, deeply seen, is rare. And seeing someone else for who they are, beneath the layers, beneath the performance, beneath the armor, that's a kind of magic most never experience. But I did, in the back row of a forgotten theater on a rainy Thursday night in 1959, with a woman the world adored, and a name the world never truly knew, Norma. I remember something strange about that night. Not just how she looked or how she spoke, but the silence after she left. It was thick, like fog settling on a battlefield. I stood there long after she had gone, staring down the empty street, expecting maybe she'd come back. Maybe it was all just a dream unraveling slowly in my half-asleep mind. But it wasn't a dream. It was real, too real. And in the days that followed, I tried to pretend it was just another night. I went back to work, threaded film through dusty reels, watched strangers drift in and out of that same cinema. But nothing felt the same. Even the movies lost their glow. That night haunted me. Not in a terrifying way, but in a quiet, aching way. The way some songs haunt you because they remind you of who you were before the world hardened your edges. Sometimes I'd sit in the same row she had, after hours, staring at the blank screen, as if it might bring her image back, as if the ghost of her presence still lingered in the velvet seat cushions or the smell of rain trapped in the curtains. There were things I wish I had said, things I didn't know how to ask. I wanted to ask what her favorite childhood memory was, whether she ever had a place that truly felt like home, what scared her most when the lights went out, whether she believed she was loved or simply admired. But I was just a boy, she a myth wrapped in loneliness, and yet, for those few hours, we were equals, just people trying to feel human in a world too eager to forget we are. She told me that night, "Everyone wants to own a piece of you. They take photos, pieces of stories, parts of your smile, but no one ever stays for the parts that don't shine." I told her maybe the broken parts are what makes someone worth knowing. She looked at me, really looked at me, and whispered, "Then maybe I've been looking in the wrong places." Decades passed. I got married, had children, buried friends, retired, but nothing, absolutely nothing, ever came close to that night. Not in intensity, not in truth. My wife used to ask me, when I'd drift off into thought after watching old films, "What are you remembering?" And I'd always say, "A quiet conversation, I never told her the full story, not because I was ashamed, but because it didn't feel like something that belonged to the world. It was sacred, mine and hers. A moment no camera captured, no newspaper printed. Sometimes I wondered if I imagined the whole thing, a fantasy conjured by a lonely teenage heart. But then I'd hold the envelope she gave me, her handwriting, delicate and unsure, still preserved in ink that hadn't faded. The words, "If someone sees the real me and stays, I'll finally believe I exist." I used to think she was speaking about herself. Now I think she was speaking for all of us. We all want to be seen, truly seen, not for what we project, not for who we pretend to be, but for what lingers beneath all that noise. The fears, the bruises, the trembling child inside the grown body. Some nights I still sit by the window with that letter and imagine how life might have unfolded differently. What if I'd followed her? What if she'd stayed a little longer? But those thoughts fade quickly, because I know deep down she gave me something more valuable than time. She gave me meaning, and in a world so desperate for attention, she reminded me that quiet, fleeting, genuine connection, without cameras, without applause, is the rarest thing of all. That's the night I saw Norma. Not the blonde icon, not the tragedy, but the woman, the one who just wanted to be real for someone. And for a moment, she was. Last year, while flipping through channels late at night, I stumbled upon a documentary. It was about the golden age of Hollywood. Black and white clips, old interviews, photos that had long gathered dust. And then suddenly, there she was. Not Marilyn, not the myth, Norma. A grainy clip showed her laughing between takes, her head thrown back, joy sparkling in her eyes. Then the voiceover said something I'll never forget. She once told a young fan, "I don't want to be remembered for being beautiful. I want to be remembered for being kind, even if no one noticed." I sat there frozen. No one knew who that young fan was. No one even cared. But I did. Because that was me. That was our moment, wrapped in anonymity, preserved only in memory. I don't need my name in a book or credits in a film. I don't need validation that it happened. I lived it. I felt it. And sometimes that's all the proof the soul needs. I think a part of her knew she wouldn't grow old, that she wouldn't have the chance to tell her story in her own words, but she told it to me, and now I tell it to you. So when people ask me about the greatest moment of my life, I don't mention weddings or awards or births. I say this: once I sat beside a woman who the world thought was everything, and she let herself be nothing just for a moment with me. And I was enough for her to be real. In the end, I think that's what all of us want. Not applause, not fame, just one moment of truth with someone who sees us, without expectation, without judgment, without illusion. That night, Norma Jean Mortensen took off her crown and sat in the dark with a boy who'd never forget her. And now, neither will you.